Says that it is.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to all of you. It's April 1st. Today's April Fool's Day, if you haven't figured that out. Welcome and thanks for being here. And especially for our visitors, parents, anyone else, we would like for you to sign in and provide your name, title, business if it's applicable. Okay, since it is 10 a.m., I would like to call the meeting to order, and we will begin with a roll call. My name is Belinda Puska, and I'm present. Rose Thompson, Vice President. She's present. Mr. Donald Nimick. Is Donald here? Okay. Dr. Francis White, is he here? I don't think he is.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay.
Dr. Putska, Mr. Nimick and Dr. White will not be able to attend today's meeting.
Okay. And Mr. Clemens, you're here.
Here.
Okay, very good. And we will also be missing our superintendent, Dr. Anderson, who has to be gone due to a death in the family. We wish him and his family all the best. Okay, so since we do have a quorum present, I would like to begin with public comments. Rebecca, do we have anyone that you can see that wants to join us for public comments?
I didn't receive any public comments, Dr. Putska, through email, phone, or sign up form on our website.
Okay. All right. And if anybody joins us, I can ask again at the end of the meeting. All right. Well, thank you very much. Since we don't have any public comments, we now need to move to the approval of the minutes. Do I hear any changes that need to be made, any corrections? And if not, I move that the minutes for the regular board meeting. Somebody make that motion.
Rose Thompson, I move that the minutes for the regular board meeting held on January 28, 2020 be approved as presented.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second, Bob Clemens.
Okay. And I approve those. Ms. Thompson, do you approve?
Approve.
Okay. And Mr. Clemens?
Approve.
Okay, very good. Let's move on to the informational items. And I think Rebecca will be helping us with these. The superintendent's report is the one that we will begin with. And Rebecca, do you have some comments that you would like to make about the superintendent's report?
Yes, ma'am. So in the absence of Dr. Anderson, he has requested that the superintendent report this morning be presented by each department lead in regards to the areas that will be discussed. So we would like to ask that each presenter introduce the one to follow. We'll begin the report with the attendance portion that will be handled by Jim Pollock, who serves as the Director of Special Projects, Accountability and Assessment.
Good morning, everyone. Becky, did you want to bring up the exhibit? And then I'll just mention what Dr. Anderson, there it is. And it's small, sorry. There's a lot of information on it, but it has been updated as of March 25th. So since the last board meeting, we have increased enrollment from 613, or I'm sorry, yes, enrollment from 1,613 students to 1,668 students. So that's an additional 55 students. ADA has been dropped a little bit by less than 0.6%, but it is lower, and it's right now as of March 25th, 72.6%. And retention rate, as we do progress through the year, we do continue to lose students. So our retention rate is down to 61.1% from 68.3. The enrollment continues to be stable, and the district has not experienced any significant decline or increase in enrollment over the last 5 months. And TEA has stated that the agency recognizes that many districts are experiencing low attendance as a continued impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and they are working on solutions. And as a matter of fact, this isn't included in the board minutes, but we can add it, or the meeting agenda, but we can add it to the minutes. The commissioner did just release to the administrator address letter, and they are reducing the operational instructional minutes for districts. They're aware that the districts are experiencing losses in average daily attendance due to the low rates of attendance caused by the ongoing pandemic. And since ADA is a major component to determine the foundation school program funds, in an effort to mitigate that, TA has worked with leadership to provide a mechanism to assist LEAs. And so the Commissioner of Education is exercising his authority to approve a reduction in the minimum number of required 75,600 minutes of operation for all LEAs during the first through the fourth 6 weeks attendance reporting periods for this school year. And this will result in an adjustment that will ensure stabilized percentage attendance rates comparable to more typical school years, rather than the low percentage rates caused by the ongoing pandemic. So they are continuing to put mechanisms in place to help out school districts. So as we close out this into this school year, that will positively impact our funding. And that is all I have for the attendance, unless there are questions. Financial stability will be presented by Tammy Padilla.
Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
The board has approved a budget for 2021-22 based on ADA of nearly 1,208 students. We are continuing to monitor the district resources daily to avoid a possible deficit for the current year. We are utilizing our federal funds as much as possible and allowed to maximize our state budget. RMA's federal ESSER funding is provided here on page 16, and we have started to utilize that funding based on the grant and where we indicated we would be supplementing those funds. On page 17, we have 13 positions that are currently vacant throughout the district. Overall, the district has a 93% of our positions that are currently filled, including our substitutes and our tutors. We currently have 213 staff members, and of that, 161 of them are full-time staff members. Carl, would you like to cover the COVID updates?
Yes, I will be happy to do so. So just to go over the COVID updates for this month, or this last couple of months since our last board meeting. Since the beginning of the school year, RMA has logged 300 positive COVID-19 incidents spanning all 9 of our campuses plus central office. And the chart that's shown, we've broken it down so that you can see the number of cases from the beginning of school through December, as well as the second half of the school year, which was January through the present. At the time of that we pulled the numbers for this report, which was last Thursday, we currently have no active COVID-19 cases in the district. And just to let the board know, we have communicated all of these cases out to the staff and to the community as required by TEA and our back to school plan. With that, every Monday we are required to update the state on our numbers, which we've been doing, and some things that have come up over the past couple of months since our last board meeting is we received a grant to help pay for PPE, which we spent at the beginning of this year. So we've received some funds to reimburse RMA for all of the PPE that we purchased up to this time. And also we used some of that money to purchase air purifiers for our Amarillo campus. So each of the classrooms in the Amarillo campus will receive air purifiers, which will help alleviate some of the air quality concerns at the Amarillo campus. And that will be to hold us over until the ESSER 3 funds are expended and our HVAC upgrades are taken care of later this year. So with that, I think that concludes my presentation. Becky, did you want to go over the graduations for schools?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Lastly, Dr. Anderson wanted us to also make available the graduation details for this school year. In case that any of our board members are interested in attending any of the graduations, if you could please let me know so we can then notify the campuses, as well as should there be travel involved, we would like to go ahead and see if we can get started with that. So I'll go ahead and email this chart out after the board meeting, and that way everybody can have the graduation information. That would conclude the superintendent's report, Dr. Prutska.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. Thanks for stepping up and pitching in. You know, the graduation dates, it's just right around the corner, but this is something that we can all celebrate. And it would be nice if some of us could attend some of the graduations, just to let the campuses know that what they do is very important to us. Okay, so now we're moving on to the February year-to-date financials. And I think that's Tammy once again.
Hello. I have summarized some of the February financial information on page 22. Since we last met, the Small Business Administration has come back with more questions regarding the PPP loan forgiveness paperwork. Apparently, we have been selected for an extended review, so the process is taking much longer than we had originally anticipated. We have provided them all of the information that they've asked for, and so we're just waiting to hear back from them again at this point. Currently, through the February financials, we have accrued 121 days of state revenue for our school year. And if we move forward to the chart on page 23, we are looking at the enrollment data by month for the last 3 years. And as of this report, the highest day in February that was reported was 1,580 students, which is up just a few students from the last time we reviewed these financials in January. And on the next page is our ADA, average daily attendance, for the month of February. We are looking at 72% attendance, which is consistent over the past 3 months for the current fiscal year. And on page 25, this chart represents our foundation school payment revenue that we have received versus the amount that we had budgeted for. We budgeted $16.4 million, which was based on that ADA of 1208. And currently we are slightly lower because of our ADA. So we have recorded revenue of $14.1 million through February. And on page 26 is our days cash on hand. And this is calculated by breaking out the expenses down into daily amounts and then dividing them by the cash balance at the end of the month. So if a charter school has 60 days at least cash on hand, then TEA gives them the highest rating available, which would yield 10 points on their charter first score. So this has always been one of the strongest areas that I've seen at RMA since I've been here, and it's something that we're always proud of with our cash on hand. And on page 27, through the month of February, we have $11.9 million in expenditures and almost $10.5 million in revenue. We have done a really great job of reducing the deficit to about $558,000 through the month of February. Remember that we still have not recognized that PPP revenue that I just discussed. We will not be able to do that until we receive notice from them that they have completed their review. However, the expenses that we use that PPP money on are already reflected in the financials. So they are part of our current year expenditures. And as soon as we are able to forgive that loan, then the revenue will also be recognized and it will throw us right into a surplus. And on page 28 is our administrative cost ratio. And through February, our administrative costs are just under 14% as reflective of our instructional costs. This equation compares function 21 and 41 of our expenditures to functions 11, 13, and 31, which are instructional expenditures. TEA would consider these expenditures low, and based on the current financials, this would also yield us 10 points on a financial indicator. Last summer, we submitted to TEA an estimate of what we believed our ADA would be for this current year, and we did that at 1,208 students. That projection is 65% ADA for an enrollment of projected 1,858 students. In February, our ADA was 1,208 students, which is consistent with 1,135 students, which is consistent with what we've had for most of this year. And page 30 is the Charter First indicators that are currently applicable to this fiscal year. TEA has not waived any of these indicators for the current fiscal year. And if we were to end the year in February, we would receive 80 points out of 100. This is not an indicator of where we plan to be at the end of the year, but it's just an indicator of where we are right now. Item 10, which is one of the indicators that we have lost points on, indicates that we are not within 10% of our projected budget, which we wouldn't expect to be at this point of the year. And indicator 12 says that we do not have a surplus, which is also not correct at this point of the year. So again, we still have time to pull these indicators up, but as you can tell from this chart, an 80 would yield us an above average score as well. So it is something to be proud of for RMA. And finally is our budget to actual reports for Fund 240 and Fund 420, which are the required funds that the board is required to adopt every year. We are currently at 67% through the fiscal year. And as you can see, we are under that percentage for state revenue for most of the reasons that we've talked about today. And TEA has recognized that, and Mr. Pollack has indicated that they are trying to assist schools with that. So we hope to see some adjustment there within the next few months. And function 61 is community services, and it's a little elevated for this time of the year because we have recognized some year-to-date expenditures there that were done earlier in the year, but those expenses will not continue to increase at the same level. They were one-time expenditures. We have a few functions that I would consider to be lower than what we would expect, which is function 13 for professional development. We, due to some of the pandemic area times that we've had this year, we can see that professional development was sometimes down. And so that would be expected due to the pandemic and some of the things that we've experienced this year. And also function 34, because our enrollment is low, we are not furnishing as many bus passes for our students as we have in previous years. And function 52, which is security, is also a little bit lower than we would expect because our guards don't start until August. So they really only work for about 10 months out of the 12 fiscal years. And we also switched security services in the middle of the year this year, which led to a little bit of a transition and possibly some reduced costs there. That is the end of my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
I actually have one question. So we're at about 75% attendance rate, and your estimate for enrollment is is higher than what it actually is. At this point, do you know what you will be using for enrollment for the following year? Yeah, I know you're probably putting your budget together right now. So
we are. Thank you for that question. We are starting to have those discussions. I am talking with Charter School Success about what everybody is kind of doing, what their schools are also doing. I've had a conversation with Mr. Anderson, Dr. Anderson this week about where he would like to start those budget numbers with the projection for next year. And he has indicated to me that he does not want to project an increase in ADA for next year. I think that the feedback is we know we can survive where we are, and anything else, if it's higher, then that would just be gravy, I think is what he calls it. So we don't want to set ourselves up to project for additional ADA when everything is still just quite uncertain throughout the state.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions?
Yes, I have one pertaining to the transportation and suspending of the bus passes with low attendance. I would like for someone to revisit that and see if that's cost effective.
Could you rephrase the question? You would like us to visit? We
I
furnish
think I
bus
heard you say-
passes. Yeah, we furnish bus passes to the students at the campus level to get back and forth to to the campuses. What would you like us to research?
I thought you said you stopped that.
No, we did not stop that.
Okay,
It's just
so
because we have lower ADA, not as many students. We haven't had to expend as much money in that area, but we still furnish bus passes to our students.
okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, why don't we move on to the facilities update? And Carl, I think that this one is yours.
Thank you. So this morning, we're going to be discussing our Midland relocation, the possibilities of a relocation in Fort Worth. I'll also cover the ESSER 3 HVAC upgrades that we're working on, and give the board an update on the Ray Tech construction lawsuit that we had going. So with that, Becky, if we could go down to slide number 34. So since the previous board meeting, just to bring the board up to date, our Midland campus lease expires on 7/31 of this year, 2022. We've identified a location at 1305 North Midland Drive, which is with the Alamo Heights Baptist Church. At our last board meeting, we approved an LOI for a lease that we would be moving into at that location. And at this board meeting, we've taken that LOI and to the next level, which is a contract level. And so we will be presenting the board with a contract for the Alamo Heights Baptist Church. Everything seems to be on schedule at this moment. Our schedule is very tight to be able to get everything taken care of before the coming school year. However, if we are delayed, we will be able to extend our lease at our existing location on a month-to-month basis to be able to start school and then move over if necessary. If we'll go down to page 35, this is a copy of our current schedule. We're in April and just beginning to get into the section where we will be bidding the project and getting some numbers back for that. We hope to start construction on approximately the 13th of May. And then, of course, we would be complete by the end of August, hoping to start school at this location on September the 6th, which is the day after Labor Day. And if we'll go down to the next slide. So our architects have begun doing some preliminary work on the project, or actually work on the project. And the slide that we're looking at right now shows the existing conditions of the building that we would be occupying, and the current classroom configuration, because these classrooms were built out for church services or Sunday schools, that sort of thing. The classrooms are a little bit smaller than what we need. So if we'll go down to the next slide, this is the actual configuration that we will be working on for construction to refit the building into a condition that we'll be able to work with. During the course of our investigation on this building, we'll go down to the next slide, number 38. We did find some asbestos in the building. The plan that you're looking at there just shows the minimal amount of demolition that we would be doing, with the red dotted lines being walls that would be removed and or relocated. However, we did find some asbestos in the spaces, and so we are currently working with the architects and an asbestos or an environmental engineer to abate that. So if we'll go to the next section, you'll be able to see some of the areas that are affected by the asbestos, and we're hoping to have that removed prior to June 1 so that we can begin work on the construction. So that's where we're at on our current Midland project. We'll go down to our Fort Worth relocation, which is on page 40. RMA's building in Fort Worth let's see, I didn't put the date on there. So that will be expiring in August of 2023. And so our current building on Camp Bowie, which is one of our options, we would look at either expanding our lease there or purchasing that building and having it, our current footprint expanded into the whole building. Our second option in Fort Worth is Dr. Anderson and I are in contact with it's the Bethel Baptist Church, which is in Fort Worth. We've talked about this at the last meeting and showed you guys some heat maps and that sort of thing. This would be a great relocation of our existing campus to 7300 South Freeway, Fort Worth. This would be a purchase and a renovation. And that project, we're currently in discussions, trying to come to terms on a price, which we would formalize into an LOI and then present to the board at the next board meeting. And then the project is currently on track. If delayed, we could exercise our option to extend our current lease. And as I said, we may also pursue purchasing of our existing building. And with both of those, we're in communication with Frost Bank to review the financing and work on budgets, which we'll present to the board at the next meeting as well. Becky, if we can go down to slide 41. This is our ESSER 3 HVAC upgrades. We are expecting to get the construction documents this week. We hope to get those this afternoon. We did a preliminary review of the documents with the engineers a week ago. And I'll just let the board know that that has turned into some very valuable information for RMA. The engineers have gone out and done an extensive survey at each of our campuses, locating all of the HVAC equipment. They put that into plans. They've located all of the gas lines. They've done extensive review of the make and model numbers for all of the equipment that's involved in our district, as well as come up with a very unique plan for each campus that is going to improve the air quality significantly. So we're looking forward to getting that project off the ground. It will also benefit the district in that many of the units which are older will need to be replaced. And so using this money, it will buy RMA some significant HVAC advantages going forward. So once again, we're still looking at a 14 to 16 week delays on equipment. The project should still be completed by the end of this year. We're anticipating sometime between October and December. And we're trying to time it so that we can do the bids for this project alongside our bids for the our Midland relocation. So that will all be happening within the next couple of months. The next slide, Becky, is an update on our Raytech construction. So at the last board meeting, the board did approve Dr. Anderson to go ahead and finalize a settlement with Raytech Construction. That has been done, and we have received a check from Raytech Construction. So we'll be closing that project out and considering that a done deal. And so that the board knows that the final amount did exceed the criteria that the board discussed in November. So we're very happy or pleased with that. You can look at the next slide just to show you the areas that we're working on facilities wise. Once again, the Midland lease, which is currently up, and then our Fort Worth lease, which is up in August of 2023. And as always, it's normally cheaper for RMA to purchase these properties than to lease them over an extended period of time. So in both instances in Midland, we are working on a 3-year lease with the intent to purchase at the end of that 3 years. And in Fort Worth, we're looking at a purchase and a renovation right at the very beginning. So with that, concludes my facilities updates. So Dr. Putzka, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Carl. I do have a question,
Yes, ma'am.
and it has to do with the Midland campus. You said that it should be finished by September 6th
Yes.
in time for the beginning of the school year. As with all renovations, there are always things that you're going to uncover, and unfortunately, you found asbestos. Do you think that the September 6th is still a reasonable deadline?
Currently, I do. Everything on the schedule seems to indicate that we can meet that deadline. The architects are confident if we hit our goals along the way, there should be no issues. And the amount of demolition is pretty minimal. So we're hoping to not run into as many issues just because of the amount of work that we're going to do is pretty minimal.
Okay,
And if it should carry on longer, we would be able to extend our current lease by a month or so, whatever's needed to be able to continue to have school and then move over at a convenient point.
okay, that was my main question. I didn't know if we had to delay the start of school. And the same thing with HVAC. I know that there's a deadline for when you have to have those monies spent.
Yeah.
And so do you still feel good that you'll be able to meet those deadlines?
I do. So we have till the end of 2023 to meet those deadlines. So I think we'll be well ahead of that.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Carl. And I think now we're ready for Lakeisha to give us an update on the RMA Student Assistance Programs and Training Services.
Good morning, board members and RMA faculty and staff. This is our update on our student assistance program, which we are currently under contract with. The program began last February and continues to run through the end of this school year. The objective of the program is to allow our students and our faculty to obtain assistance in various areas that include awareness, a mindfulness program, cognitive behavior theory, student assistance, legal and financial help, online seminars, savings centers, telephone counseling, and real-time support for real living. All of these services are offered virtually, so none of our students or staff have to actually go to a location, but they can simply call into a direct number and receive the services and or referrals as needed. Currently, RMA in our utilization report, Becky, if you'd scroll down for me, thank you. As of February 28th, 2022, 0.5% of our entire student population and staff had utilized those services. Now, this number is an increase from where we were as an organization last year. However, it is below the projected standards from the Book of Business, which is 1.30, as you can see in the report, and it is greater than the industrial benchmark of 0.01%. In comparison to other organizations similar to RMA, we are slightly behind the curve, and that can be attributed to a few things. I don't think most of our staff members understand that they can utilize the services as well. Most of our students who are in need have been referred to the service, but they have not followed the route. And so on next week, I will be scheduling a meeting with the president to talk about ways that we can improve our usage and increase our partnership and what we can do to move these numbers forward. The rest of the utilization report gives you a breakdown of the services that were utilized over the last 3 quarters. The number of individuals who actually participated in those services would equate to 4, with most of the services being offered in the clinical area, specializing in stress reduction and anxiety strategies. You can continue. What you see going before you are just some graphs of utilization by month, as well as quarter, cases by quarter. This is our key statistical information that I alluded to a moment ago. The clinical usage that has not increased, but the clinical usage seems to be the most utilized service provided by this organization, with long-term and psychiatric referrals being at the top of the chain, followed by work-life strategies to help us all balance, not just students, but staff as well, balance the pressures of coming out of COVID, balancing our professional endeavors or our student endeavors with our personal lives. The method of contact that is utilized most often for this program will be the caller information, simply calling into those very numbers, the hotline numbers, in order to receive those services. We can continue. Here's an overview of the main issues and what services were provided based on the needs. We had our single session services. There were 2. Our psychiatric referrals were 2 in number, and then our legal assistance was 1, as well as our daily living. And I did not mention this at the beginning of this presentation, but this utilization report is available, has been made available and uploaded into the work session for the board. And finally, the report is summarized by clinical cases by category. To just give you an even greater look at what has been used, what services have been used. As we continue to move forward with our not only our school year, but with our services, we continue to know that stress is the most common or the most pressing personal concern that our students and our staff members have. The management of stress, coupled with time management and professional and personal responsibilities, which is closely followed by low mood or hopelessness, which fluctuating mood, which all tie into anxiety and panic. And I think most of you would agree that over the last 2 years, we've seen a rise as a nation, as a society, and people suffering from anxiety based on the effects of the pandemic. These final pages just summarize the knowledge of services that were used before, during, or after, and how our personnel found out about the services. Many of them had used the service before, which means that they were repeaters, which is great. It's a continuation of services, which is what we want. They have either obtained materials from HR or they received those materials at a benefit or health fair. What we like to do is see our numbers increased with new users as well as those who are returning, which means that they are sustaining the services that they need to improve their lives. As I stated before, the method of contact is telephone. Now, all of this is virtual. There is a virtual component, but most people elect to use the telephone. And this is our case-by-case basis. All right, are there any questions for me regarding the student assistance program? Once again, as I stated, I will be meeting with the president of this program. He was recently involved in an automobile accident, so he is recovering. And he, myself, and Dr. Anderson will be collaborating to determine what our next step will be as it relates to this program. Thank you for your time, and I'll turn it back over to Dr. Putston.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. This is a service that our students and employees need. Okay, so the next item is mine, and it's the discussion of the 21-22 annual board meeting. And just as an aside, our next board meeting, regularly scheduled, is May 20th, which is on a Friday. And the meeting after this would be really one of the most important board meetings of the year. And it has been proposed for Friday, June 17th. And if there seems to be an interest or a large number of items, then Dr. Anderson would also like to meet on Thursday, June 16th. But right now it is Friday, June 17th. And this is when we go over the past year, the budget for the upcoming year, the school calendar, all the things that set the planning operation for the school. Do I hear from the other board members? Is June 17th okay? And would you prefer to have one long day on June 17th or break it into 2 days, June 16th and June 17th?
With the I think that's the week of Father's Day.
Okay,
And I think shortly after that, that's the meeting in Washington, DC, but many of our people will be attending.
okay,
And I think I'm leaning towards moving it to the 16th and
Okay.
having, and if we have to have an overflow, we would go to the 17th. Other than that, the 16th would just be the meeting that date.
okay. Yeah, I have no problems with that. Mr. Clemens, do you have an opinion? Does it matter one way or the other to you?
I really agree with Mr. Thompson. I would prefer to move to Thursday and give us one more time,
Okay,
get set to go to Washington.
okay. And so Rebecca, if you will pass that information on to Dr. Anderson, and we'll see what he says about setting it on the 16th and just having like a long board meeting, like from 9 until whenever we finish. And if it's too long, then we come back and we finish up the next day.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. And I think so that concludes that agenda item, but we have the introduction of a new Midland Campus principal. And I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Givens and say welcome to our new principal.
Hello, everyone. I want to introduce one of our newest, very dynamic, with a diverse background, new principal of Midland, Mr. Ephraim Marino. Mr. Marino? Mr. Marino, I see that you're here as a participant.
I'm so sorry. I clicked on my video and it's, I guess, not working, and now my mute button just went off again. I'd like to say hi, good morning. I don't know if you can see me. I can't see myself on the screen. My camera is on. Again, I want to say thank you for letting me be part of the RMA family and taking reins of RMA Midland. I also like to say thank you to the school board. Thank you to everyone in the admin building for guiding me thus far.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. So I assume that you've already begun being the principal. What was your first date?
Yes, ma'am. My first day was February 7th.
Okay, very good. Well, you've selected an interesting time. I don't know if you've ever moved campuses before, but I think that you're going to get that experience with this job. But I would just say on behalf of the board, thank you very much for choosing RMA.
Thank you for having me. Did you hear that? I said, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Givens, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Well, what I would like to add, he has been here since the beginning of February, and he's come in with so much experience and so much knowledge. He's truly a true asset. He's already showing to be a very good asset to our district and to our students. And I'm very happy that we have him.
Well, that's good. He does come with a world of very valuable experience, and there's nothing tougher than being a high school principal. So it's one of the most difficult jobs. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we're now ready to move on to the action items. And let me just say that the people that volunteered to review all these policies, my hat's off. Thank you so very much. By reviewing these in advance and making whatever changes, you have saved us hours of work. And, you know, I do consider you the experts in this particular policy are the ones that you reviewed. So if there are things that we need to know and you need to bring to our attention, please do so at this time. So let's begin with the Module 1, the governance. And we have a designee who will be taking over. And who is that designee, Rebecca?
That would be me, Dr. Putzka.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so just a little bit of background that I found to be interesting as well. So every 2 years, the Texas legislature meets to tackle important issues, make new laws, and amend old ones. Often the important issues considered by the legislature, we know, involve education, an interest shared by many in the community, especially parents, employees, and trustees. At times, members of the legislature seek answers from school districts on education issues. At other times, individuals who feel strongly about proposed legislation want to advocate for or against its passage. Now, the Texas legislature requires TEA to report or to provide reports on a variety of topics. TEA then produces a briefing book that describes these new laws that impact public education after each legislative session. Now, in regards to Richard Milburn Academy, to us, we have been longstanding members of the Texas Public Charter School Association, or TPCSA. So beginning with the 86th legislative session in 2019, TPCSA contracted with the law firm of Shulman, Lopez, Hoffer, and Adelstein to create board policy modules. These aligned with the latest legislative updates at that time, and this has continued to be the practice. So with that being said, the policy modules that we're presenting today will contain the latest updates in alignment with the 87th legislative session. And so we'll begin with governance module 1. We have also listed on the intro page the policy committee members that assisted with the vetting of that policy. I will go ahead and just go on to the first page of the extractions, and I'll just leave it up to the board should there be additional questions, comments that you may have. The extractions do consist of, I believe, at least, yes, about 10 pages. So I know we had sent this information out beforehand. You tell me what you need me to do. I am happy to scroll down if you want to take a quick look. I know not everybody served on the same policy committees. Do you want me just to go ahead and scroll down and so you can see the main items?
Hang on. Yes, just
Okay.
scroll through. We've all had the opportunity to go over it. So yes, why don't you just scroll down through there?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
if any board member wants us to stop, or any of the people that are with us today. The only one that gave me a bit of pause was, okay, exceptions to the prohibition of firearms would be honorably retired peace officers, qualified retired law enforcement officers, federal criminal investigators, or former reserve law enforcement officers with proper identification. But, you know, I know that this is fully in line with the recommendations from the attorney. But, you know, that's the only one that I had to read a couple of times, and, you know, I understand. But yes.
And Dr. Putzka, one of the committee members as well, had some questions about one of the sections in governance. And so we were happy to go back, realizing this is the rule, but you just asked for further clarification. So that's something else that we're happy to do as well. just to know that. We're happy to go back to the attorney's office and request clarification on any of this information.
Okay, that's fine. This was an important legislative session. That does not necessarily mean that everything that came from that session we all agree with, but yes. Okay, well, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Do any of the board members have any other comments or questions about the Module 1 governance? It looks like that Module 1 had the most extensive renovations to it. I think out of them all.
I'd like to just thank Becky for posting in time to give us a chance to review everything before the board meeting, since it was so extensive, and ask questions. And one question I had was about state law and federal law and what superseded what. And I got that answered. So I'm pleased with everything that's been presented.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson.
If I hear no other questions or comments, do I have a motion to approve the policy series Module 1?
I so move.
Okay, and a second?
Rose Thompson, second.
Okay, very good. And now for a vote. I vote to approve. Ms. Thompson?
Yes, I vote to approve.
Okay, and Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Yes, and I would like to echo what Rose Thompson said. Thank you for getting all this together. This was over 1,000 pages. So getting this out to us in a timely way was greatly appreciated. So now let's go on to the adoption of Module 2 instruction. Dr. Gibbons.
Hello, everyone. Okay, this is Module 2, Instruction, Background Information. Administration seeks the assistance from the Texas Public Charter School Association, who contracts with Schulman, Lopez, Hoffer, and Aldenstein. I'm sorry. The Module 2 updates provided are aligned to the new laws passed by the Texas legislature during the 87th legislative session and on new interpretations released by TEA. Last school year, the Board of Directors decided to establish an ad hoc committee to assist with the vetting of policies. In the following, this procedure, the policy committee took place on March 25th of 2022 to discuss the policy Module 2 for instruction. The committee members present were Dr. Francis White, Mr. Robert Clemens, Dr. Ahmad Anderson, Dr. Unita Gibbons, Mr. James Kirksey. The following pages consist of the updates that have been embedded into the board policy for instruction, followed by the updated board policy. We'll just do what we did just for Module 1, have Becky scroll through it, and if there were any issues, concerns, or questions, I'm happy to assist.
as I look at this and I'm working to find like a positive response, I would like to say thank you for teaching the character traits and personal skills. These are things that we all need to be reminded of daily, of courage and trustworthiness and integrity. And I appreciate very much the principals and the teachers that work on those teaching those on a daily basis and showing an example of these. Would any of you who serve on this committee, would you want to add anything or just any comments? If not, we'll entertain a motion to accept it. Okay, so
So moved.
thank you.
Rose,
And
second.
okay, very good. And I vote to approve. Rose,
Approve, yes.
Mr. Clemens.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to module 3. Dr. Gibbons, I guess you're up for module 3 as well.
Yes. Module 3 concerns students. Again, this was adopted. This is legislation that was adopted in the 87th legislative session in 2021. Again, the committee that comprises this module was Ms. Rose Thompson, Mr. Donald Nimick, Dr. Ahmad Anderson, Dr. Unita Gibbons, and Mrs. Christina Averill. Okay. We'll do the same as we've done for the previous 2 modules. We'll scroll through it. If there are any questions, I'm here and more than happy to answer those questions.
So board members, do you have any questions? To me, this one was fairly straightforward. Any questions or comments?
No questions or comments.
Thank you. Anything in particular, Dr. Gibbons, that you need to bring to our attention? And if not, I'll hear a motion to approve module 3.
Rose Thompson, I move that the updated REMA Texas Board Policy Series Module 3 for students be adopted.
Okay,
Bob Clemens, second.
thank you. And I approve. Ms. Thompson
Approve.
and Mr. Clemens.
Approved.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Gibbons. We appreciate it. This was, these were long policies to review.
Thank you so much.
And so now we're ready for module 4. Christina Averill.
Good morning. I might be having the same problem. I don't see my little video, but that's okay. So this is the personnel module that is also updates from the 87th legislature session. In our committee, we had Ms. Thompson, Mr. Nemec, Dr. Anderson, Dr. Gibbons, and myself. We were very fortunate with the personnel manual this time, the personnel module for this round. We did a lot of our updates last year. I believe most of the module was overhauled last year. So for this meeting, we're really only seeing one change, and it's in the language when reporting child abuse and neglect. So if you guys don't have any questions, that is the only change that I have for you today.
We all hope that from this point forward, there's only one word change. And makes it very easy to review. Okay, so do I hear a motion to adopt module 4?
I so move.
Thank you. And second, Mr. Clemens?
I second.
Okay, and I vote to approve. Ms. Thompson
Yes.
and Mr. Clemens.
Yes.
Okay, very good. And we will have module 5 at the May board meeting. So let's move on to module 6. And with special education and James Kirksey, this one's yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I was having issues with my mute button today. Thank you, board, for allowing me to present today. So this action item is brought up. The committee consisted of Dr. Francis White, Mr. Robert Clemens, Dr. Mart Anderson, Superintendent, Dr. Unita Gibbons, and myself. And so the policy changes today, you'll see there are a couple of the policies were split into 2. And their updates as we go down. There you go, Becky. Thank you. And so number 8 was added to the policy. Again, these were discussed extensively with the committee, and there wasn't a whole lot of questions on number 8. If you'll go down, Becky, if you have any questions, board, as we go, please let me know. I'll be glad to answer them. Wording changes here, and then also strike throughs, things that they've made corrections on. And then the improvements to behavior plans, there were some questions there. Dr. White had brought up about restraints and things like that. And the issue was, again, lawsuits and things that unfortunately happened and occurred. And Mr. Clemens was insightful on that on the committee. And then the COVID Recovery Act, it requires each district to address how that they did compensatory services for students during the COVID-19 time that are still currently with us from the 1920 to 2021 school year, how we address that within each annual ARD.
Okay.
Then the supplemental program is a supplemental program to, again, help to make up for any lost educational time that was took place. And so it was just the duties that we have until that are coming up, running out this coming school year. And then this is talking about, there was a wording change. TA likes to do from time to time, from English learning now or limited English proficiency to emergent bilingual. And then this is one of the policies I was talking about in policy group 6.9. They divided these policies into 2 different groups. As we discussed last year, they didn't quite make sense to us being together, and they actually figured it out, and we split them into 2 this year. Same thing with a discipline of students with disabilities. Again, this was a policy that they divided into 2. And it ensures that FBAs and all of the positive behavioral supports are put into place for students, for MDRs, manifestation determination reviews for behavior. And then a big update, which is known as dyslexia, now updated version of the State Board of Education Dyslexia Handbook. It took place, which causes dyslexia moving forward to be assessed under IDEA, under special education services versus 504 services. So now all dyslexia evaluations will be performed under special ed evaluations. And then because of the changes for the dyslexia, they wanted to update into the policy for special education qualifications to be highly trained in dyslexia instruction. And that was the policy personnel qualifications in the new section here, as well as reporting that information, who is identified with dyslexia, to the TEA. This is here is just wording updates. And then again, in this policy, it was just divided into two groups from 6.9 and 6.25. This is the second part of that 6.9. It used to be one. And then the dispute resolutions. This is just talking about if there's disputes between the parent and the district relating to evaluations or identifications of students, evaluations, any placements. It just goes through what's facilitated by what meetings, conferences, all of that documentation, what has to be done. And the time limits of the complaints, all of that has been just, it tells exactly what has to be done. And then again, the policy 6.28 was divided into 6.11 and 6.28. It was divided again, talking about restraints and timeouts. And then confinement. Go ahead. It goes into timeout, what can be done for behaviors. This is again an area Dr. White was very interested in learning about, that we needed a policy to just treat students with respect. As well as those physical restraints. You can't lock a student in a room. You can't, restrain them in certain ways. Any of that way. Go ahead, Miss Becky. And then 6.29 is an update of video surveillance. And so currently we don't have any behavioral units or anything of that nature, but this would be in case of that. We left the policy in case in the future we do have need for a behavior unit or something of that nature. We would be able to record in the classroom if we so chose, as long as we gave the information to the parents. If they ever requested a copy, it tells the procedures of that. And that is it. Any questions?
I have one question. It's not related to changing any policy.
Yes.
But on the restraint training, how do we document that and who is being training? And if, when and where and how, you don't have to tell me now, but in the future, I'd like to see a chart of how we handle that.
For sure. We do. I can tell you now, though, we do have one of our LSSPs is a certified CPI trainer. And so they are able to provide that. Currently, in the past, RMA did not train teachers before incident occurred. We are now working to do that so that all faculty have training in that area. And we sent our LSSP to training to be a trainer of trainers, so she can do that.
I would just like to keep a chart
For
documentation.
sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mhm. Any other questions? Oh, thank you.
Thank you. This is a very challenging area. Okay. If there are no more questions, do I hear a motion to adopt Module 6?
So moved.
Okay.
Second,
And
Rose Thompson.
thank you. And I vote to approve, and Ms. Thompson
Yes.
and Mr. Clemens.
Yes.
Very good. You know, it didn't take us as long to move through these policies because everybody had done their work in advance. And I just, once again, would like to say thank you for everyone who reviewed these policies and answered questions in advance. It saves a lot of time at board meetings. And so thank you very much. Now we're ready for Carl to once again talk to us about the contract for the Midland Campus. And let me turn this over to Carl.
Sure. So as we discussed earlier at our last board meeting, we brought to the board an LOI, letter of intent for a lease that we wanted to go into with Alamo Heights Baptist Church in Midland. And now we'll go over so we took the lease, the LOI, and we went from, with that, we took it to our attorneys at Walsh Gallegos, and Walsh Gallegos, working with our brokers, Insight Education Facility Services, produced the contract, which we've approved with the Alamo Heights Baptist Church, and we're ready to present that to the board. So I'm going to read the background, and then we can get into any questions that you guys might have. So at the January 28th board meeting, the board of directors were provided with the final letter of intent for the Alamo Heights Baptist Church, which will serve as the new campus location for Midland. The board of trustees then granted approval to the superintendent as designee to proceed with the securing a contract for the facility. The contract presented today has been reviewed by the district's legal counsel and is ready for the board's consideration. I will add a couple of changes that from the LOI to this document was, once we ran into the problem with the asbestos, we increased the due diligence period from April the 15th to May 20th. So we gave ourselves a little bit more time on that, just to make sure we didn't get into any heavier asbestos abatement than we are anticipating at this time. And the other item is on the Appendix A that we added, or Addendum A. On an Addendum A, we added a diagram that just outlines where the staff parking and the student parking would be for the campus. We just felt it was necessary to cover that up front, as opposed to running into issues with that later on. Parking always seems to be an issue. So with that, do we have any questions or concerns that I could address?
Rose Thompson, I have one concern. Dr. Puska, we're concerned about the timeline that's so compact there. And I was wondering if this time, do we need to go ahead and include in the motion that we extend give you the permission to extend the present contract as needed?
I think that would be a good idea. in that way, it gives us some flexibility without having to come back for a special meeting so that we can restate the motion made to include giving the administrators the authority to act if, because what we don't want is for school to be delayed. And so just give them the authority to extend the contract, the current contract as needed. But I think that would be a good idea. I do have one further question though, Carl, and it has to do with, you said that the idea was you would like to purchase, or you would like RMA to purchase this building in the future. Have they expressed interest in selling the building?
Yes, they have, very much so. As a matter of fact, in the contract, we've written in so that the attorneys felt that it was best to write in so that RMA gets first right of refusal if they decide to purchase it. So the intent is that if they, or when they decide to sell the building, that we would be the first ones to go into negotiations with them on that.
Okay.
And we've had discussions in that we've agreed that when the time comes, we would have an appraiser come in that would be certified by the bank, and that appraiser would come up with a price that we would be able to negotiate off of. So there have been discussions.
One other question. We have some pre-existing things going on with abating the asbestos in that building. I'm not sure how much the cost is, but that's a present existing thing. And do we have to cover the complete cost, or are they responsible for some of that? That was an ongoing deficiency before we entertained them.
And that is the rationale for extending the due diligence period till May the 20th. We are in discussions with them about that. We presented them with 3 options, or actually we've started with option number 1, which would be that they would cover the cost of the abatement.
Okay.
Option number 2 is they would split the cost of abatement with RMA. And if needed, we would go to option number 3, which would be they would cover either the full cost or split the cost, but they would give us rent concessions in order to pay that off. Like, so if, let's just say it was $30,000 worth of abatement, they would give us 3 months worth of free rent to cover that. So we are in negotiations with them about that.
Sounds good. You know, it does surprise me because they haven't used asbestos in construction in a long time. And so either this building is incredibly old, or they were using material during construction that was already not the standard. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. It is there, so.
Yes, and it is the part of the building that we will be occupying was the original church, which dates back to the 60s.
Okay. All right. Any further questions or comments? If not, I would like to entertain a motion for both the leasing of the real property and allowing the administration to negotiate if we need additional time in order to move into the building.
I so move.
Okay.
A second.
Okay, very good. So I vote to approve. Rose?
Rose Thompson, approve.
Okay, and Mr. Clemens?
Approved.
Okay, very good. All
Thank you.
right. We have no items in closed session for today. Rebecca, did we have anyone else that joined us that wants to make a public comment?
Let me confirm real quick with Mary as well. It seemed like we just had RMA staff.
Okay.
But I
Yes,
do-
no other connections.
no,
Okay, very good. All right, so there's no need for any additional public comments. Our next meeting, scheduled meeting is Friday, May 20th at 10. And if there are no other comments, questions, anything else, I say that the meeting is adjourned and it is 11:24.